close your eyes and imagine this. Beneath you, stretching down into darkness, lies the largest living space on Earth. 300 million cubic miles of water. An alien world that covers 71% of our planet's surface, holding secrets older than mountains, and creatures more magnificent than any that have ever walked on land. Right now, as you listen to these words, a heart the size of a small car is beating somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. It beats only 4 to 8 times per minute. Slow, steady, powerful. This heart belongs to a blue whale, and it has been pumping for perhaps 80 years, moving 6,000 litres of blood through a body as long as 3 school buses placed end to end. Tonight, we're going to descend beneath the surface. We're going to travel with these giants, the blue whales, humpbacks, orcas, grey whales, sperm whales, and right whales. We'll witness their daily lives, their ancient migrations, their family bonds, and their remarkable intelligence. We'll experience the ocean as they do, through sound and sensation, through instinct and memory, through social bonds that can last a lifetime. So take a deep breath, hold it, and slowly release. The journey begins now in the warm waters of the Pacific, where new life is taking its first breath. Part 1. New Beginnings. The Humpback Calf. The water here is impossibly blue, the kind of blue that only exists in the tropics, where the ocean floor drops away to depths measured in miles, and the sunlight penetrates down through crystal clear water in shimmering columns of light. This is Hawaii, though the whale calf being born here has no name for this place. She knows it only as warmth, as safety, as home. The mother humpback has travelled 3,000 miles to be here, fasting the entire journey. She carries no map, follows no compass. Instead, she navigates by the magnetic fields of the Earth itself, by the angle of the sun, by memories inherited from her own mother and grandmother, an unbroken chain of knowledge stretching back thousands of generations. The birth happens quickly. One moment, the calf is contained. The next, she is emerging tail first into the open ocean, a 15-foot-long, 2,000-pound bundle of new life. Her mother immediately nudges her upward, up toward the light, up toward that crucial first breath. The surface breaks around the calf's blowhole. She exhales instinctively, releasing the fluid from her lungs in a small spout. Then, the first inward breath, air flooding in, filling her lungs with oxygen, committing her to a life lived between two worlds. She will spend 90% of her time underwater, but she will never be able to breathe there. Every few minutes for her entire life, she must return to the surface. This is the fundamental rhythm of whale existence. Dive, surface, breathe, dive again. The mother produces milk so rich it's almost the consistency of toothpaste, 50% fat, compared to 4% in human milk. The calf will drink 100 gallons of it each day, gaining 100 pounds every 24 hours. She stays close to her mother's side, learning to swim with small movements of her tail flukes, learning to dive by following her mother down into the blue. Around them, the water is alive with sound. The ocean is not silent. It never has been. It rings and hums and clicks and whistles with the voices of its inhabitants. Shrimp snap their claws in crackling waves. Fish grunt and croak. Dolphins whistle in complex patterns. And beneath it all, travelling for hundreds of miles through the water, come the songs of the male humpback whales. These songs are among the most complex in the animal kingdom. Each one lasts between 10 and 20 minutes, and the males repeat them over and over, sometimes for hours on end. The songs change gradually over the years. Phrases are added, others drop out, the melody evolves. All the males in a population sing the same song in any given year, but by the next year, the song will have transformed into something new. They are not just singing, they are passing on culture, participating in a musical tradition that spans the entire ocean. The calf hears these songs through her body as much as through her ears. Sound travels nearly 5 times faster in water than in air, and whale hearing has evolved to use this advantage. Their skulls conduct sound, their jaw bones pick up vibrations, and they can hear frequencies both lower and higher than human ears can detect. To a young humpback, the ocean is a symphony, layered, three-dimensional, rich with meaning. But for now, in these first days of life, the world is small and simple. There is mother, there is milk, there is the warmth of the tropical water. The calf stays close, sometimes resting her head on her mother's back as they float together at the surface. When she needs to sleep, she does so vertically in the water, with her mother beside her, keeping watch. Other humpbacks pass through these waters, males competing for the attention of females, mothers with their own calves, young adults gathering in loose groups. The calf watches them breach, these massive 40-ton animals launching their entire bodies out of the water and crashing back down in explosions of white foam. Scientists still debate why humpbacks breach. Perhaps it's communication, the sound of the impact traveling for miles. Perhaps it's play or territorial display, or simply the joy of movement. Whatever the reason, the sight is extraordinary, an animal larger than a bus, momentarily defying gravity, suspended in air. The calf tries it herself on her 3rd week of life, a small breach, barely clearing the surface, but her mother seems to approve, gliding close and stroking the calf with her long pectoral fin. These fins, called flippers, can grow to 15 feet long, a third of the whale's total body length. They're the longest appendages in the animal kingdom, and humpbacks use them with remarkable dexterity, waving them, slapping the water's surface, embracing their young. Weeks pass in this way. The calf grows stronger, drinks her fill, learns the rhythms of life. But something is changing. The water, warm as it is, contains almost no food. The mother has been fasting since she arrived, living entirely off the thick layer of blubber she built up during the summer feeding season. That layer is diminishing now, and soon, very soon, they will need to leave this nursery and make the long journey north. Part 2. The Ancient Roots. Grey whale migration. 3,000 miles to the east, another migration is underway, one that has been called the longest mammalian migration on Earth. The grey whales are leaving the warm lagoons of Baja California, where they too have given birth, and beginning their journey north to the feeding grounds of the Arctic. A grey whale cow swims steadily northward, her calf keeping pace beside her. Unlike the humpback calf in Hawaii, this grey whale calf was born in the shallow, protected lagoons, water so calm that the mother could rest in the sandy bottom between nursing sessions, water so warm that even a newborn could maintain its body temperature. But now they swim in deeper water, following the coastline of California. The grey whales are coastal travelers, rarely venturing more than a few miles from shore. They can see the land as they swim, the mountains of Big Sur, the redwood forests, the rocky outcrops where sea lions bark and harbour seals rest. This is the route their ancestors have travelled for millennia, and they follow it with the certainty of memory encoded in their genes. The journey will take them 12,000 miles round trip, from the lagoons of Mexico to the Bering and Chukchi Seas, and back again. They will make this journey every year of their lives, spending summer in the north, building up their reserves, then returning south to breed and give birth. It is an exhausting cycle, but it ensures their survival. Warm waters for the vulnerable calves, rich waters for the adults to feed. As they swim, the grey whale mother shows her calf how to feed in the shallows. Grey whales are unique among the great whales. They are bottom feeders, diving down to the sea floor and rolling onto their sides, sucking in huge mouthfuls of sediment. Their baleen plates filter out the mud and sand, trapping the tiny amphipods, small crustaceans that burrow in the bottom. A grey whale's baleen is shorter and coarser than that of other whales, adapted perfectly for this sifting feeding style. The calf watches her mother create clouds of disturbed sediment, watching the filtered water and mud stream from the side ends of her mother's mouth. She tries it herself in shallow water, learning the technique, practicing the roll, the intake, the filtering. It's clumsy at first, but instinct guides her, and her mother is patient. They pass through kelp forests, the giant brown algae swaying in the current like underwater trees. Harbour seals watch them curiously. Sea otters floating on their backs at the surface barely glance up as the whales glide beneath them. Once, they swim past a group of human whale watchers in a boat, and the people point and exclaim, taking photographs, their voices carrying down through the water in muffled waves. The whales pay them little attention. They have encountered boats before, and these ones keep a respectful distance. But not all boats are respectful. As they continue north, they must cross shipping lanes, the invisible highways of massive container ships that rumble through the ocean at high speeds. The mother grey whale can hear them coming from miles away, and she steers her calf wide, giving the ships a wide berth. A collision with one of those vessels would be fatal, and every year some whales are not so lucky, but most are, and the migration continues. Weeks pass. The water grows colder. The coastline changes, less populated now, wilder. They swim past Oregon, past Washington, past British Columbia. The calf is stronger now, able to swim for longer periods without rest. Her mother still produces milk, but less frequently. Soon, the calf will need to feed herself. They enter the waters of Alaska, and here the ocean transforms. The seafloor rises in places to form vast underwater plateaus. Currents collide, pushing nutrient-rich water up from the depths. This upwelling feeds explosive blooms of plankton, which in turn feeds everything else: fish, seabirds, seals, and whales. The grey whales will spend their summer here in these cold, productive waters, feeding almost constantly to build the blubber reserves they'll need for next year's migration. The calf watches her mother dive again and again, sees the clouds of sediment, begins to understand that this is where the real work happens. Birth may take place in warm waters, but survival is earned here, in the cold, rich seas of the north. Part 3. The Singers. Humpback feeding grounds. The humpback calf from Hawaii has completed her own journey north, though her route took her and her mother to Alaska's Inside Passage and the waters near Glacier Bay. Here, the transformation is dramatic. Where the Hawaiian waters were clear and blue and nearly empty of life, these northern seas are green with plankton, thick with schools of herring and capelin, alive with humpbacks who have gathered from across the Pacific. The calf is weaning now. She still nurses occasionally, but her mother is showing her something new: how to hunt. Humpback whales employ one of the most sophisticated feeding techniques in nature. It's called bubble net feeding, and watching it is like watching a carefully choreographed dance performed by animals that weigh as much as armored trucks. A group of 5 humpbacks circles deep below a school of herring. They communicate with each other through sounds, calls and trumpets and feeding cries. Then, one whale, often the same individual each time, begins to spiral upward, releasing a steady stream of bubbles from her blowhole. The bubbles form a cylindrical net, rising towards the surface. The herring, encountering this wall of bubbles, instinctively swim away from it, concentrating in the center. The other whales time their ascent perfectly, rising from below the bubble net, mouths opening wider and wider. A humpback can expand its throat pleats to create a mouth volume larger than the whale's entire body at rest. Gallons upon gallons of water rushing in, carrying with it hundreds of pounds of fish. The surface explodes as all 5 whales burst through at once, their massive jaws engulfing fish and water together. They close their mouths and the water streams out through the baleen plates, long strips of keratin hanging from the upper jaw like a huge comb. The fish are trapped inside, and the whales use their tongues, which can weigh as much as an elephant, to push the fish toward the back of their throats and swallow them. Then they descend to do it all again. The calf watches, mesmerized. She is not yet coordinated enough to join them, but she tries, diving down, releasing her own bubbles, though they form no net. Her mother feeds nearby and occasionally brings up small mouthfuls that the calf can learn from. This is not just instinct, this is teaching, culture being passed from one generation to the next. Around them, other humpbacks employ different techniques. Some lunge feed, rushing at schools of fish from below with mouths agape. Others work alone, using their long pectoral fins to corral prey. And some, the most impressive of all, use something called a lobtail feeding technique, slapping the water's surface with their tail flukes to stun fish before scooping them up. The abundance here is staggering. In these few months of summer, a single humpback can consume over a ton of food per day. They feed almost continuously during daylight hours, building up the blubber layer that will sustain them through the winter when they return to the tropics and barely eat at all. But even in the midst of this feeding frenzy, there is play. Young humpbacks breach and slap their fins against the water. Calves chase each other in spiraling pursuits. Adults rest at the surface, logging, floating motionless like logs while they sleep. Humpbacks sleep differently than humans, never fully unconscious. Half their brain remains alert, controlling breathing, keeping them at the surface or at the right depth. Every few minutes, even while sleeping, they must breathe. The calf learns the social rules of her kind. She learns which behaviors signal aggression: head lunges, jaw claps, tail slashes. She learns which signals mean affiliation: gentle touches with the pectoral fins, swimming in perfect synchrony, breaching near each other. She watches males compete, charging at each other, the escorts surrounding a female vying for her attention. And throughout all of this, beneath all the surface activity, the songs continue. Here in the feeding grounds, the songs are simpler, shorter, contact calls and coordination signals, but they are always present, a constant reminder that these are animals for whom sound is as important as sight. The weeks pass quickly in this land of the midnight sun. The calf grows heavier, stronger, more independent. She ventures farther from her mother's side, joins other juveniles in their games. Soon, perhaps next year or the year after, she will make the migration on her own. But for now, she still returns to her mother's side at night, still seeks comfort in her presence. As summer wanes, the behavior of the whales begins to change. They feed with renewed urgency, as if they sense what is coming. The days grow shorter. The water temperature drops a few more degrees. And then, one day, the first groups begin to leave, heading south, back toward the warm waters where the next generation will be born. The cycle continues as it has for millions of years. Part 4. Deep divers, the sperm whale. Far from the coastal waters where humpbacks and grey whales travel, in the deep blue waters of the open ocean, a different kind of whale follows a different kind of life. A group of female sperm whales glides through water 3 miles deep. There are 12 of them: mothers, aunts, grandmothers, daughters, and calves, forming a matriarchal pod that has stayed together for decades. Some of these females have known each other for 40 years or more. They have traveled thousands of miles together, faced storms and predators together, raised their young together. Sperm whales are the largest of the toothed whales, and they are perhaps the most impressive divers in the entire animal kingdom. An adult female can hold her breath for 45 minutes, descending to depths of 6,000 feet or more. The males, solitary wanderers who join the females only to mate, can dive even deeper, staying down for 90 minutes, reaching depths of over 7,000 feet, where the pressure is crushing and no light penetrates. What draws them to these depths? Food. Sperm whales eat almost exclusively squid, including giant squid that can grow nearly as large as the whales themselves. These squid live in the lightless abyss, and to hunt them, sperm whales must become creatures of the deep. Watch now as one of the females prepares to dive. She's been resting at the surface, breathing regularly, oxygenating her blood. Her calf floats beside her, too young yet to make the deep dives. He will remain near the surface with several other adults who take turns babysitting while the mothers hunt. The female takes a series of deeper breaths, each one fuller than the last. Then her body language changes. She arches her back, lifts her tail flukes high into the air, a perfect silhouette against the sky, and slides beneath the surface. Down she goes, propelling herself with slow, powerful strokes of her tail. The water darkens quickly. At 200 feet, the reds fade from the spectrum. At 600 feet, even the greens are gone. By 1,000 feet, she is in twilight, the last remnants of surface light creating a faint blue glow from above. And still, she descends. Her body is perfectly adapted to this environment. As she dives, her heart rate slows dramatically, from 30 beats per minute at the surface to just 3 or 4 beats per minute at depth. Blood flow is diverted away from extremities and non-essential organs, directed instead to the brain and heart. Her lungs collapse under the pressure, preventing nitrogen from dissolving in her blood, avoiding the bends that would kill a human diver. Her brain is the largest of any animal that has ever lived, 6 times heavier than a human brain, with a highly developed neocortex. This is an intelligent animal, capable of complex thought, with a social structure as sophisticated as any on Earth. At 1,500 feet, she is in complete darkness, but she is not blind. Sperm whales hunt by echolocation, producing the loudest sounds made by any animal, clicks that can exceed 230 decibels. These clicks are generated in the massive spermaceti organ in the whale's head, a barrel-shaped structure filled with waxy oil that can make up 1/3 of the whale's total length. She sends out a click. It travels forward through the water, bouncing off anything in its path: rocks, fish, squid. The returning echo tells her everything she needs to know: distance, size, speed, even texture. She builds a sonic picture of the world around her, more detailed than anything vision could provide in this darkness. There, a cluster of echoes moving quickly. Humboldt squid, each one 6 feet long, with tentacles lined with razor-sharp hooks. She accelerates, jaw dropping open, revealing rows of 8-inch teeth. The teeth don't actually chew. They grasp and hold. Sperm whales swallow their prey whole. She catches 2 squid in quick succession, swallowing them as she continues to dive. Down past 2,000 feet now. The pressure here is over 60 times atmospheric pressure at the surface. Yet she continues, hunting, clicking, consuming the calories she needs to maintain her massive body in this cold, food-rich zone. At 2,800 feet, she encounters something extraordinary: a giant squid, 18 feet long, with tentacles that reach out another 15 feet. This is one of the ocean's most elusive creatures, rarely seen by humans, filmed alive for the first time only in recent years. But for sperm whales, they are regular prey. The squid doesn't surrender easily. Its tentacles lash out, leaving circular scars on the whale's head, battle wounds that many sperm whales carry their entire lives. But the whale is larger, stronger, more determined. She grasps the squid's mantle in her jaws and swallows it whole, the massive meal sliding down her throat. She's been down for 38 minutes. Time to ascend. She turns toward the surface but doesn't rush. The ascent is methodical, controlled. Too fast and she risks decompression sickness even with her adaptations. She rises through the darkness, through the twilight zone, back into the dimly lit upper waters. At the surface, she exhales explosively, a spout that shoots forward at a 45-degree angle, different from the vertical spouts of most whales. This is how whalers once identified sperm whales from a distance. She breathes deeply, rapidly, replenishing the oxygen in her blood. Around her, the other females are surfacing too, all clicking and codying, the distinctive creaking sounds that sperm whales use to communicate. Her calf swims to her immediately, pushing against her side. She's been gone for nearly 40 minutes, and he missed her. She will stay at the surface now for 8 to 10 minutes, breathing, resting, bonding with her calf. Then she will dive again. This is her life, a rhythm of deep hunting dives punctuated by surface intervals, repeated day after day, year after year. The pod drifts together, the calves nursing, the adults clicking and socializing. They form a rosette sometimes, all facing outward, tails nearly touching in the center. A defensive formation learned over millennia, protecting the vulnerable calves from predators. Even in the open ocean there are dangers. Orcas sometimes attack young sperm whales, and even great white sharks will try if the opportunity presents itself. But the pod is strong, experienced. The matriarch, the oldest female, perhaps 60 years old, has led them through worse. She remembers winters when food was scarce, summers when the ocean temperatures shifted, times when the pod was larger, and times when it was smaller. Her knowledge is the pod's survival, passed down through generations, a library of experience encoded in her massive brain. As evening approaches, the clicking becomes more rhythmic, more patterned. These are coders, clicking patterns that identify this particular clan of sperm whales. Each clan has its own dialect, its own identity. These coders are learned, not instinctive, a true form of culture like the songs of humpbacks or the hunting techniques of orcas. Young calves learn them from their mothers, and they will carry these patterns their entire lives, broadcasting their identity across the ocean. The stars begin to appear overhead, though the whales pay them little attention. Their world is sonic, not visual. They navigate by sound, by memory, by the pull of the Earth's magnetic field. They have no need of stars. But we, watching them, can appreciate the beauty of the scene. These massive creatures floating peacefully beneath a canopy of stars, their clicks echoing through the water. Ancient songs in an ancient ocean. Part 5. The Blue Giants. The largest animals ever to exist. In the cold, nutrient-rich waters off the coast of California, something impossibly large glides through the blue. It moves slowly, steadily, covering ground with minimal effort. Each stroke of its tail propels it forward 20 feet. It is a blue whale, and it is the largest animal that has ever existed on Earth. Larger than any dinosaur, larger than the largest aircraft, larger than any creature in the 4-billion-year history of life on this planet. This particular blue whale is a female, 90 feet long and weighing perhaps 180 tons. Her heart alone weighs 1,200 pounds. Her tongue weighs as much as an elephant. When she opens her mouth to feed, she could fit 100 people inside. And yet, despite her massive size, she eats some of the smallest animals in the ocean, krill, each one no bigger than your little finger. Right now, she is following a krill swarm. These tiny crustaceans gather in vast aggregations, sometimes stretching for miles, turning the water red with their density. The blue whale can sense them through a combination of sight, sound, and even taste. The water here has a different quality when krill are present. A slight change in temperature, a subtle shift in salinity, perhaps even a chemical signature that her sensitive palate can detect. She positions herself below the swarm, tilting slightly to the side. Then she accelerates, remarkable for an animal her size. She can reach speeds of 30 miles per hour in short bursts, though she typically cruises at a more leisurely 5 miles per hour. Her mouth opens wide, wider than any other animal's mouth can open, and water rushes in. The mechanics of this feeding are extraordinary. Her throat pleats, the grooved ventral blubber that runs from her chin to her navel, expand massively, allowing her to engulf 16,000 gallons of water in a single gulp. That's more than a large swimming pool's worth of water. Her mouth becomes a massive, deformable bag, and the weight of the water actually slows her down, requiring tremendous muscular effort to continue forward. Then she closes her mouth and contracts those throat muscles, forcing the water back out through her baleen plates. Blue whale baleen is black, nearly 3 feet long with fine, hair-like fringes on the inner edge. The water passes through, but the krill are trapped against these fringes. She uses her enormous tongue to push the krill toward the back of her throat, then swallows, sending several 100 pounds of krill down into her multi-chambered stomach. She surfaces to breathe, her spout rising 30 feet into the air, a visible column of mist that can be seen for miles. This is not water, as many people think, but rather the moisture in her breath, condensing as it hits the cooler air. She takes 4 or 5 deep breaths, each one moving hundreds of gallons of air in and out of her lungs, then dives again to feed. A blue whale needs to consume about 4 tons of krill per day during the feeding season, roughly 40 million individual krill. She must feed almost constantly, dive after dive, gulp after gulp. It seems exhausting, but this is what evolution has optimized her for. She is the ultimate krill harvesting machine, perfectly adapted to convert these tiny crustaceans into the energy needed to power the largest body on Earth. She is not alone here. Other blue whales feed in these same waters, though they maintain distance from each other. These are solitary animals, not pod dwellers like orcas or sperm whales. Occasionally, she encounters another blue whale, and they may swim together for a few hours or days, but the bonds are temporary. Blue whales do not form lasting social groups, but they do communicate. Blue whale calls are among the loudest sounds produced by any animal, up to 188 decibels, louder than a jet engine. These low-frequency sounds can travel for thousands of miles through the ocean, allowing blue whales to maintain acoustic contact across vast distances. A blue whale off the coast of California can hear another blue whale near Hawaii. What are they saying to each other? Scientists are still trying to understand. Some calls seem to be contact calls. I am here. Some may be reproductive advertisements, males calling to attract females. Some may be navigational, sharing information about food sources or ocean conditions. The calls vary by population, suggesting different dialects, different cultures. This female produces a long, low moan, a sound that drops down to frequencies below human hearing range. It reverberates through the water, through the sea floor, through the bodies of every creature within miles. To human ears listening through hydrophones, it sounds mournful, almost lonely. But to other blue whales, it is simply communication, the voice of their kind, echoing across the vastness of the ocean. She feeds through the day and into the evening. As the sun sets, painting the surface waters gold and pink, she takes a longer rest at the surface. She lies nearly motionless, logging, her massive body rising and falling gently with the swells. This is as close as she comes to sleep, resting one half of her brain while the other half remains alert, ensuring she continues to breathe. The ocean darkens. Bioluminescent plankton begin to glow in her wake, tracing her movements through the water in streams of blue-green light. She dives again, and the disturbed water explodes with luminescence, a galaxy of living light surrounding the largest animal on Earth. Below her, the ocean floor drops away to depths measured in miles. Above her, the stars wheel through the night sky. And she continues her ancient rhythm: dive, feed, surface, breathe, a pattern established long before humans walk the earth, a pattern that will, if we protect these giants, continue long after we are gone. Part 6. The Hunters, Orca Intelligence, and Family Bonds. In the cold waters off the coast of Norway, something is hunting. Not the solitary stalking of a shark, but coordinated, intelligent, tactical hunting that rivals the strategies of wolf packs or lion prides. These are orcas, also called killer whales, though they are actually the largest members of the dolphin family, and they are perhaps the ocean's most intelligent and adaptable predators. A pod of 15 orcas glides through the fjord. They move in tight formation, their distinctive black and white patterns making them unmistakable. The white eye patches, different for each individual, allow the whales to recognize each other even at a distance. Each pod member has a name, in a sense, a signature whistle, unique to them, that others use to call them specifically. This is a matriarchal society, like the sperm whales, but even more tightly bonded. The pod is led by a grandmother, perhaps 50 years old, and includes her daughters, her sons, and her grandchildren. Male orcas stay with their mothers their entire lives, a bond that can last 60 years or more. When a male's mother dies, his own mortality risk increases dramatically, suggesting just how dependent these animals are on their family bonds. The pod is hunting herring. They have been tracking the school for hours, using their sophisticated echolocation to follow the fish even in the murky water. Now they've found a massive aggregation. Hundreds of thousands of herring schooled tightly together, and the orcas begin their coordinated attack. First, they work together to herd the herring toward the surface, cutting off escape routes, using their bodies to form a barrier. Some orcas dive deep, swimming beneath the school to drive them upward. Others circle, preventing the herring from scattering. The coordination is precise, timing perfect, the result of years of practice and cultural transmission. Once the herring are tightly packed near the surface, the orcas employ a stunning technique. One by one, they dive beneath the school, turn upside down, and swing their powerful tail flukes through the mass of fish. The impact stuns or kills dozens of herring with each strike. Then, the orca calmly swims through the stunned fish, picking them off one by one. This technique, called carousel feeding, is learned behavior, culture passed from mother to calf, from grandmother to grandchild. Not all orca populations use it. Some hunt seals, launching themselves onto beaches to snatch prey. Some hunt rays, flipping them over to immobilize them. Some have even been documented hunting blue whales, the largest predator on Earth, taking on the largest animal ever to exist. Each population has its own specialization, its own culture, its own techniques. And these differences are so profound that scientists now believe there are actually several distinct species of orcas, each adapted to different prey and different environments. They look similar but are genetically and culturally distinct, the equivalent of humans and Neanderthals living in the same ocean. Watch now as the youngest calf in this pod practices the tail slap technique. She's only 2 years old, still nursing, but already learning to hunt. Her attempts are clumsy. She doesn't generate enough force. Her timing is off. But her mother is patient, demonstrating the technique again and again. Her older brother joins in, showing her how to position herself, how to swing through the water. This is active teaching, something rare in the animal kingdom. The calf will spend years perfecting these techniques, years learning the acoustic signatures of different prey, years memorizing the best hunting grounds and the seasonal movements of fish. She is not just learning to hunt, she is being initiated into a complex culture. After the hunt, the pod socializes. They rub against each other, a behavior called affiliative contact that strengthens social bonds. They spy hop, lifting their heads vertically out of the water to look around. They breach, launching their 6-ton bodies completely out of the water in displays of strength and exuberance. And throughout it all, they vocalize constantly. Orcas have one of the most complex communication systems in the animal kingdom. They produce 3 types of sounds: clicks for echolocation, whistles for communication, and pulsed calls, rapid series of clicks that sound like squeaks, screams, or trumpeting. Each pod has its own dialect of pulsed calls, acoustically distinct from other pods. These dialects are so stable and consistent that scientists can identify which pod an orca belongs to just by listening to its calls. But it goes even deeper than that. Pods that associate with each other share similar dialects, forming acoustic clans. And clans that don't associate have completely different call repertoires, even if they live in the same general area. This suggests not just communication, but culture, learned behaviors that define group identity and are passed down through generations. The grandmother leads the pod away from the fjord as evening falls, heading toward their regular resting area. Orcas rest differently than most whales. They don't sleep with half their brain like other cetaceans. Instead, the entire pod enters a state of quiet rest, swimming slowly in tight formation, barely moving, all facing the same direction. They sink slightly in the water during these rest periods, then rise to breathe. But they remain together, synchronized even in sleep. As they rest, they dream, or at least, their brain patterns suggest something similar to REM sleep in humans. What does an orca dream about? The hunt? The pod? The vast ocean that is their home? We may never know, but the complexity of their brains suggests that their inner lives are rich and vivid. The night passes peacefully. The aurora borealis flickers overhead, the northern lights painting the sky in waves of green and purple. The orcas surface to breathe, their exhalations visible in the cold air. And perhaps, in some way, we don't fully understand. They appreciate the beauty of their world. Part 7. The Survivors. Right whales and the fight for existence. Off the coast of Cape Cod, in the cold waters of the North Atlantic, swims one of the rarest and most endangered large whales on Earth. She is a North Atlantic right whale, and there are fewer than 400 of her kind remaining in the entire ocean. Her species has been pushed to the brink of extinction, and despite decades of protection, they are still declining, losing population every year to ship strikes and fishing gear entanglements. She got her name, right whale, from whalers who considered her the right whale to hunt. She swims slowly, rarely exceeding 6 miles per hour. She floats when dead, making her easy to retrieve. And her body is up to 40% blubber, yielding enormous quantities of oil. For these reasons, right whales were hunted relentlessly for centuries, their populations reduced from perhaps 20,000 to just a few hundred. This female is 30 years old, middle-aged for her species. She bears the scars of her existence in an ocean shared with humans. Across her back run white patches, callosities, rough patches of thickened skin that house colonies of whale lice. These callosities are unique to each individual, like fingerprints, allowing researchers to identify and track every right whale in the population. But she also bears other scars. Rope marks from fishing gear entanglements, a healed wound on her fluke from a boat propeller strike that came too close. Despite these challenges, she has survived. She has even reproduced, giving birth to 3 calves over her lifetime. Only one of them survived to adulthood. The ocean is harsh, and right whale calves face many dangers. But that one surviving offspring represents hope, a genetic contribution to a population desperately in need of new individuals. Right now, she is feeding in the rich waters off Cape Cod, and her feeding technique is different from any other whale we've encountered. She doesn't lunge like a humpback or gulp like a blue whale. Instead, she skim feeds, swimming slowly forward with her massive mouth open, filtering tiny copepods from the water. Her mouth is enormous, up to 40% of her total body length. Her baleen plates are the longest of any whale, measuring up to 9 feet, with extremely fine fringes capable of filtering the smallest zooplankton. She swims through dense patches of copepods, taking in water continuously, the water flowing out through her baleen, the copepods trapped inside. It's a slow, methodical process, but right whales are patient feeders. She may skim feed for hours, consuming tens of thousands of copepods, gaining the calories she needs to maintain her massive body. A right whale needs to consume about 2,000 pounds of copepods per day during the feeding season, a staggering amount of these tiny creatures. She surfaces to breathe, her V-shaped blow distinctive among whales, 2 separate streams from her 2 blowholes, creating a heart-shaped spout. She has no dorsal fin, giving her back a smooth, rounded appearance. She is not built for speed or acrobatics like a humpback. She is built for endurance, for survival, for the slow, steady work of existing in a challenging ocean. Other right whales feed nearby. Despite their rarity, they gather in these productive feeding grounds, following ancient patterns. They are surprisingly social for baleen whales, often touching each other, rubbing heads and bodies, engaged in what looks like simple affection. Young whales breach repeatedly, their massive bodies arcing through the air. Even adults engage in surface active behavior, rolling, flipper-slapping, lob-tailing. But always there is an undercurrent of danger. Ships pass through these waters constantly, Massive container ships, tankers, fishing vessels. Right whales are slow to react to approaching vessels, perhaps because they evolved in an ocean without such threats. Many are struck and killed each year. Regulations exist, speed limits in right whale habitat, shipping lane modifications, but they're not always followed and accidents still happen. Fishing gear poses another constant threat. Right whales feed at the surface, making them vulnerable to becoming entangled in the vertical lines connecting lobster and crab traps to surface buoys. A whale swimming through a line can become wrapped in rope, around the head, through the mouth, around the flippers or tail. Some break free. Some carry the gear for months or years, the rope cutting deeper into flesh, causing infection, slowly starving the whale by preventing proper feeding. Many die from these entanglements. This female has been entangled twice in her life. Both times she was fortunate. The gear didn't wrap too tightly, and she eventually broke free, though not without scarring. Other whales are not so lucky. Researchers work constantly to locate entangled whales and attempt disentanglement, but it's dangerous work, and not all whales can be saved. Despite all this, she persists. She feeds through the summer and fall, building her blubber reserves. She will migrate south for the winter, to the calving grounds off Georgia and Florida. She is pregnant, a 14-month gestation that will result in a 15-foot, 1-ton calf born in the warm southern waters. This will be her 4th calf, and the researchers who track her population will celebrate when they confirm the birth. Every new calf is hope. Every surviving juvenile is a small victory against extinction. As the sun sets over Cape Cod, she takes one more series of dives, feeding in the golden light, her massive body moving with a grace that belies her size. She is a survivor, a representative of her species, carrying within her body the genetic legacy of millennia. She is a right whale, and she has every right to exist in this ocean, to feed and breed and raise her young, to swim these waters that her ancestors swam for millions of years before humans ever built ships or set fishing gear. She surfaces one final time as darkness falls, her breath creating twin clouds in the cooling air. Then she dives, disappearing into the depths, continuing the ancient work of survival. Part 8. The Night Ocean. Nocturnal Behaviors and Bioluminescence. Night has fallen across the Pacific. The moon rises, nearly full, painting a silver path across the water. Beneath the surface, the ocean transforms. This is when many creatures of the deep rise toward the surface in the largest migration of animals on Earth, the Deal vertical migration, where billions of small fish, squid, and zooplankton ascend from the depths to feed under cover of darkness. A young humpback whale swims through this night ocean, now independent from her mother. She is 3 years old, not yet sexually mature, exploring the ocean on her own for the first time. She has completed the migration from Hawaii to Alaska twice, but this year she lingered in the middle latitudes, finding food enough to sustain her, not yet driven by the reproductive urges that compel the adults north and south with such regularity. The water around her glows. Every movement creates sparks of blue-green light, bioluminescent plankton responding to disturbance by producing light. When she swims forward, her wake traces a glowing path through the darkness. When she breaches, and she does for the simple joy of it, the water explodes in a cascade of living light, her body momentarily silhouetted in a galaxy of stars. She is not hunting now, just existing, experiencing her world. She produces sounds, not the complex songs of the males, but simpler vocalizations. Contact calls, checking if any other humpbacks are nearby. Sometimes she receives answers, sometimes not. She is alone, but not lonely. Solitude is natural for a young whale, a time to learn the ocean on her own terms. She encounters a pod of dolphins, Pacific white-sided dolphins, dozens of them, surfing through the night, their movements creating tracer trails of bioluminescence. They seem to play with the light, deliberately creating spirals and circles, swimming patterns that serve no purpose except beauty. She watches them for a while, then continues on her way. Deeper in the ocean, away from the moonlight, the sperm whale pod has descended for their night feeding. They prefer to hunt at night when their squid prey come closer to the surface. The darkness makes no difference to them. They hunt by sound, by echolocation, by senses we can barely comprehend. Their clicks echo through the water, overlapping and interweaving, creating a symphony of sound that maps the underwater world in perfect detail. The youngest calf is learning to dive deeper now. She can manage 800 feet, staying down for 15 minutes. Impressive for her age, though nothing compared to her mother's capabilities. She practices her clicking, producing the loud reports that startle fish and stun squid. She's not proficient yet, but instinct and observation guide her. Her mother tolerates these practice sessions with patience, sometimes clicking herself to help the calf locate prey. They surface together, the calf pushing close to her mother, seeking comfort in the darkness. Above them, the stars wheel through the night sky, the same stars that guided ancient Polynesian navigators across these waters, the same stars that have looked down on whales for 50 million years of cetacean evolution. In the cold waters of the North Atlantic, the orca pod rests, drifting in their tight formation, breathing in unison, their exhalations visible in the moonlight. They rest, but remain alert. Even in sleep they listen, their sophisticated hearing detecting any unusual sounds. A passing ship, an approaching storm, another whale in the distance. All are noted, categorized, remembered. The blue whale feeds through the night, following krill swarms that have risen toward the surface. She feeds by moonlight, each gulp illuminated by bioluminescence, her massive form ghostly in the silver light. She is alone, as blue whales typically are, but her calls travel through the darkness, connecting her to other members of her species hundreds of miles away. In the vast ocean, she is never truly isolated. Off the coast of Baja California, where the grey whales gathered to give birth earlier in the year, the lagoons are quiet now. The whales have all departed, heading north, leaving behind only memories and the certainty that they will return. The water itself seems to remember them, these ancient pathways worn smooth by millennia of migration. And in the southeastern United States, in the warm waters off Georgia and Florida, pregnant right whales are beginning to arrive. This is their calving ground, the only known birthing area for this critically endangered population. They arrive singly or in small groups, seeking the shallow, protected waters, where their calves will have the best chance of survival. One arrives tonight, swimming slowly into the calm water behind a barrier island. She is the same female we met earlier, the 30-year-old who feeds off Cape Cod. She has traveled over 1,000 miles to be here, driven by instinct and the growing urgency of her approaching birth. She has not eaten since leaving the northern feeding grounds. She will fast for the entire winter, living off her blubber reserves, dedicating all her energy to the calf growing inside her. She settles into the shallow water, barely 20 feet deep, and waits. The birth could happen any day now. When it does, it will happen quickly, tail first, like all whales, the calf emerging into the warm water, the mother immediately guiding it to the surface for that crucial first breath. But tonight, she rests. She floats at the surface, her bulk barely moving with the gentle swells. The water is calm here, protected from the open ocean. This is why she traveled so far, for this peace, this safety, this ancient breeding ground that right whales have used for thousands of years. The moon sets, the stars fade as dawn approaches, and across the world's oceans, whales continue their eternal rhythms, breathing, diving, feeding, singing, migrating, giving birth, dying, living. The ocean is their home, as it has been for 50 million years, as it will be, if we can help it, for millions more. Part 9. The Songs of the Sea. Communication across the ocean. Sound is everything to whales. In the ocean, light travels only a few hundred feet, but sound can travel thousands of miles, bouncing off the ocean floor and surface, channeled through temperature layers and salinity gradients into acoustic highways that span entire ocean basins. A male humpback whale sings in the deep waters off Tonga. He has been singing for 4 hours, hanging vertically in the water, head down, tail toward the surface, producing his complex song. The song lasts 18 minutes, and he repeats it without pause, occasionally surfacing briefly to breathe before descending again to continue. The song is extraordinarily complex, multiple themes, each composed of phrases, each phrase made up of individual units. It follows rules of rhythm and rhyme, of repetition and variation that echo human music in surprising ways. Some phrases are low-frequency rumbles, felt in the chest more than heard. Others are high-pitched chirps and whistles. Together, they form a composition that can carry for 20 miles or more through the water. Why does he sing? The traditional explanation is that it's a mating display, males singing to attract females or to compete with other males. But the reality may be more complex. Singing occurs primarily in the breeding grounds, yes, but also during migration, and even occasionally in the feeding grounds. Females have been observed approaching singers, but also ignoring them. Non-singing males have been observed successfully mating. The full purpose of these songs remains one of the great mysteries of cetacean biology. What we do know is that the songs change. All the males in a population sing the same song in any given season, but by the next season, the song has evolved. Phrases are added, others are dropped. The structure shifts. It's a cultural transmission, learned behavior spreading through the population. Even more remarkably, songs can spread between populations. A song that originates off Australia can gradually spread across the Pacific, reaching humpbacks near French Polynesia years later. The musical innovation transmitted from whale to whale like a viral hit spreading across the internet. Other males are singing nearby, a loose aggregation of singers, each one maintaining distance from the others, each one broadcasting his song into the blue. Their songs overlap and interweave, creating an acoustic tapestry that fills the ocean. Any whale within 20 miles can hear them. Any whale anywhere in this ocean basin might hear fragments of the song, carried through acoustic channels that span thousands of miles. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic Ocean, the blue whale we met earlier is producing her own vocalizations. Blue whale calls are different from humpback songs, simpler in structure, but more powerful in volume. They are the loudest biological sounds on Earth, reaching 188 decibels or higher. At that volume, the sound isn't just heard, it's felt as a physical pressure wave that passes through every living thing in the water. She produces a series of moans and pulses, each one dropping to frequencies below 20 Hz, infrasound, below the range of human hearing. These low frequencies can travel incredible distances. Her call right now, produced in the Pacific, could potentially be detected by hydrophones on the other side of the ocean. Before human noise pollution, ship engines, sonar, seismic surveys, blue whales could likely communicate across entire ocean basins, connecting individuals separated by thousands of miles. Now, human noise has fragmented this acoustic space. The ocean is louder than it has ever been in the history of life on Earth. Ships produce low-frequency rumbles that overlap with whale calls, masking their communications. Military sonar pulses at frequencies that can disorient and harm whales. Seismic air guns used in oil exploration produce some of the loudest human-made sounds in the ocean. For whales who navigate and communicate by sound, this noise pollution is like trying to have a conversation next to a highway, like trying to see through fog, like living in a world where your primary sense has been partially blinded. Yet they persist. They adapt. Studies show that some whales have adjusted their call frequencies to avoid the worst noise bands. Others call more loudly, attempting to be heard over the din. Some have shifted their calling times to periods when ship traffic is lowest. These adaptations may not be enough, we don't know, but they demonstrate the remarkable flexibility of these animals, their ability to respond to a rapidly changing ocean. The sperm whale pod communicates differently. Their clicks and coders serve multiple purposes: echolocation for hunting, communication for socializing, and identity markers for clan recognition. Each pod member can be identified by her individual vocal characteristics, the equivalent of a voice, distinct and recognizable. The grandmother produces a series of coders, click patterns that identify her clan. The pattern is 1, 2, 3, pause, 4, 5. 5 clicks in a specific rhythm. These patterns are as distinct as different languages, and sperm whales can identify clan membership just by listening. But they also recognize individuals. The grandmother's coders have subtle characteristics, slight variations in timing, in click amplitude, in the harmonic structure, that make them uniquely hers. Her daughters can identify her voice instantly, even in a group where multiple whales are calling. This individual recognition is crucial for maintaining the complex social bonds that define sperm whale society. The orcas off Norway use yet another communication system. Their pulsed calls are more variable, more complex than coders, carrying more information. Each pod has a repertoire of 7 to 17 distinct call types, and these calls are used in specific contexts. Some calls seem to coordinate hunting, others maintain contact when the pod is spread out. Some may express emotion, excitement, distress, aggression. And then there are the whistles, high-frequency sounds that each orca can modulate in pitch and duration. Each individual has a signature whistle, developed in the first year of life, that serves as a name. When separated from the pod, an orca will produce her signature whistle repeatedly. "This is me. Where are you?" And her family members will respond with their own signatures. "We are here. Come to us." This ability to name themselves and each other suggests a level of self-awareness that was once thought unique to humans and great apes. Orcas have a sense of self, a sense of others, and a sophisticated system for maintaining social bonds across distance and time. They are not just intelligent, they are conscious, aware, thinking beings with inner lives as rich as our own. The grey whales migrating along the coast use simpler vocalizations, grunts, groans and moans that serve primarily for contact and coordination. A mother and calf maintain almost constant acoustic contact, the calf producing small mews, and the mother responding with low rumbles. If the calf strays too far, the mother's calls become more urgent, and the calf returns to her side. And the right whales, those slow-moving giants, have their own acoustic world. They produce upcalls, calls that rise in frequency, distinctive and loud, serving as contact calls between individuals. They produce gunshot sounds, loud, percussive calls whose purpose is still debated. And they produce screams, high-frequency vocalizations associated with social groups, and possibly with mating. Each species has evolved its own acoustic niche, its own way of using sound to navigate, communicate, and survive in the ocean. Together, they create an acoustic landscape more complex than any human city, more varied than any rainforest. A symphony of voices that has been playing for millions of years. As dawn breaks across the Pacific, the humpback singer finally stops his song. He has been singing for 12 hours straight, barely pausing to breathe. He surfaces now, taking several deep breaths, his exhalations visible in the morning light. Around him, other singers are also falling silent. The acoustic intensity of the breeding ground diminishes, though it never fully disappears. There is always someone singing, always some voice calling through the water. He dives again, but this time to feed, not to sing. Even in the breeding grounds, the whales must eat occasionally, opportunistically taking advantage of any fish schools they encounter. He locates a small group of mackerel and lunge feeds, his throat pleats expanding, his mouth engulfing fish and water together. After feeding, he rests at the surface, and the ocean around him gradually fills with light. The sun rises over the water, illuminating a world of blue, a world of sound and motion, of ancient migrations and complex societies, of survival and beauty and mystery. Part 10. Seasons of Change. The annual cycle. Spring arrives in the northern oceans, and with it comes an explosion of life. The sun climbs higher in the sky each day, its light penetrating deeper into the water. Ice begins to melt, releasing nutrients locked away through the winter. Ocean currents shift, bringing cold, nutrient-rich water up from the depths. And in response, microscopic phytoplankton bloom in vast numbers, turning the water green, feeding the zooplankton which feed the fish, which feed the whales. The humpback mother and calf from Hawaii have arrived in Alaska, completing their 3,000-mile migration. The calf is 5 months old now, much larger than at birth, though still small compared to her mother. She is nearly weaned. Her mother's milk production is declining, and the calf must learn to feed herself. The feeding grounds are crowded with humpbacks who have arrived from across the Pacific, from Hawaii, from Mexico, from Central America. They are all here for the same reason: the abundance of food that blooms in these northern waters each spring and summer. The competition is friendly but real, and each whale must consume enough to build the blubber reserves needed for the winter. The calf watches her mother bubble net feed, watches the coordination between multiple whales, begins to understand the complexity of the technique. She tries it herself, blowing bubbles as she spirals upward, but her net is imperfect, her timing off. The herring escape through gaps in the bubbles. But she's learning, and that's what matters. Next year, she'll be better. The year after that, better still. She's also learning to breach properly. Her early attempts were clumsy, small jumps that barely cleared the surface. Now, she can launch herself almost completely out of the water, twisting in midair, crashing back down in an explosion of foam. The impact resonates through the water, carrying for miles, perhaps serving as communication, perhaps just exuberance, the joy of being young and alive in the richest ocean on Earth. Other juveniles her age gather sometimes, forming loose aggregations separate from the adults. They play fight, pushing each other, practicing the behaviors they'll need when they're older. The head lunges and jaw claps of aggression, the gentle touches of affiliation. They're establishing relationships that may last their entire lives, learning the social skills that will serve them in future breeding seasons. Meanwhile, the grey whale mother and calf have reached the Bering Sea. They passed through the Aleutian Islands weeks ago, entering the sub-Arctic waters where pack ice still floats in white masses. The water here is incredibly productive, upwelling currents bringing nutrients from the deep, feeding vast blooms of amphipods in the bottom sediments. The calf is fully weaned now, feeding independently, scooping up mouthfuls of mud and filtering out the amphipods. She's learned the technique well, though she lacks her mother's efficiency. She takes smaller bites, processes them more slowly, expends more energy for fewer calories. But she's learning, improving with each dive. Her mother feeds constantly, rebuilding the body mass lost during pregnancy and nursing. Grey whales can lose up to 30% of their body weight during the migration and calving season. Now, in these rich northern waters, she'll gain it all back and more, preparing for next year's cycle. The blue whale in the California current continues her solitary feeding. Spring brings upwelling off the coast, cold water rich in nutrients rising from the depths, fueling massive plankton blooms that feed the krill. The krill swarms grow denser, more extensive, and the blue whale feeds with single-minded determination. She has been feeding in these waters for 3 months now, consuming 4 tons of krill per day, and the transformation is visible. Her body, thin after the winter, has filled out. The contours of her ribs, visible when she first arrived, have disappeared beneath layers of blubber. She is heavy again, powerful, ready to sustain herself through next winter's fasting period. She's also pregnant, mated last winter in the warmer waters to the south, and now carrying a calf that will be born 11 months from conception. The fetus is growing rapidly, drawing nutrients from her body even as she feeds to replenish them. By next winter, she will give birth to a 25-foot, 3-ton calf, the largest baby animal on Earth. The sperm whale pod has traveled thousands of miles since winter, following the movements of squid populations, moving from one productive area to another. They're currently in the deep waters off New Zealand, where the ocean floor drops to extreme depths and giant squid are abundant. The calves are older now, more capable. The youngest can dive to 1,500 feet, staying down for 20 minutes. She's learning to hunt effectively, her echolocation improving, her ability to process the returning echoes becoming more sophisticated. She catches her first squid without her mother's help, a small one, only 4 feet long, but she's proud nonetheless. The pod continues to maintain its tight social bonds. They rest together, hunt near each other, share babysitting duties for the youngest calves. The grandmother, the matriarch, continues to lead, her knowledge guiding the pod to the best feeding areas, her experience helping them avoid dangers. One day, they encounter a pod of orcas. The sperm whales immediately form their defensive rosette, all facing outward, tails toward the center where the calves cluster. The orcas circle, assessing, looking for weakness. The adult sperm whales are too large and too organized to attack, but if a calf could be separated. The standoff lasts for 20 minutes. Then the orcas move on, finding easier prey elsewhere. The sperm whales relax their formation but remain alert. This is the ocean, beautiful and bountiful, but also dangerous, requiring constant vigilance. The orca pod off Norway has also traveled extensively since spring, following the herring migrations, moving from one feeding ground to another. The youngest calf, now nearly a year old, is becoming a proficient hunter. She can tail slap effectively, can coordinate with the pod during carousel feeding, can even catch small fish on her own. She's also developing her signature whistle, the unique acoustic identifier that she'll use her entire life. It's still simple, still evolving, but already distinctive. Her family members have learned to recognize it, responding when she calls, maintaining contact even when the pod is spread out across miles of ocean. Summer arrives and the northern oceans reach their peak productivity. The sun barely sets in the high latitudes, twilight merging into dawn with only a few hours of semi-darkness. The whales feed almost continuously, taking advantage of the long days and abundant food. But even as summer peaks, the signs of its ending are already visible. The sun begins its slow retreat southward. The days, though still long, grow imperceptibly shorter. The plankton blooms begin to fade, and the whales, attuned to these subtle changes, begin to prepare for the next phase of their cycle. Part 11. The Return. Autumn Migration. Autumn arrives in the northern hemisphere and the migrations reverse. The humpbacks who spent the summer feeding in Alaska begin their journey south. The grey whales depart the Bering Sea, starting their long coastal migration toward Baja, California. The blue whales, having built their blubber reserves, turn toward warmer waters. The young humpback, now a year old, is making her first solo migration. Her mother gave birth to a new calf this past winter and is occupied with that younger sibling. The yearling is on her own now. Not fully independent, she still associates loosely with other juveniles, but no longer tied to her mother's side. She knows the route instinctively, following cues she doesn't fully understand: the angle of the sun, the Earth's magnetic field, perhaps even the stars at night. She also follows other humpbacks, joining groups heading south, benefiting from their navigation, their knowledge, their company. The journey takes weeks. She swims steadily, covering about 100 miles per day, stopping occasionally to rest or to feed opportunistically when she encounters fish schools. She's not in a rush. The adults, driven by breeding urges, swim more purposefully. But she's still sexually immature, years away from her first mating, and the tropics call to her primarily as familiar waters, as comfort, as home. Along the way, she encounters wonders. She swims through warm currents where flying fish launch themselves into the air, their wing-like fins extended, gliding for hundreds of feet. She passes through areas where dolphins play, where sea turtles cruise slowly past, where schools of tuna streak by like silver torpedoes. One evening, she witnesses something extraordinary. A gathering of manta rays, dozens of them, swimming in loops through plankton-rich water, their massive wings spanning 10 feet or more, their mouths gaping as they filter feed. They ignore her, and she ignores them, but she watches their graceful movements, filing the memory away. The water gradually warms as she travels. The northern chill gives way to temperate waters, then subtropical, then tropical. The color changes too, from green to blue, from opaque to crystal clear. By the time she reaches Hawaiian waters, the change is complete. She's home in the warm blue waters where she was born. The grey whale mother and yearling calf make their own journey south, staying close to the coast as grey whales always do. They pass familiar landmarks, rocky headlands, river mouths, kelp forests they remember from the journey north. The calf is nearly as large as his mother now, fully capable of the migration, swimming strongly beside her. They encounter other grey whales making the same journey, and sometimes they travel together in loose aggregations, not tight pods like orcas or sperm whales, but friendly associations, whales that happen to be going the same direction at the same time. As they pass through California waters, they swim through areas where grey whales were once hunted nearly to extinction. The shore-based whaling stations are gone now, replaced by parks and whale-watching companies. Where harpoons once flew, cameras now click. Where death once waited, curious humans now gather just to witness these magnificent animals passing by. The transformation is remarkable. Grey whales were removed from the U.S. endangered species list in 1994, one of the great success stories of conservation. Their population has recovered to perhaps 20,000 individuals, close to historical levels. They prove that protection works, that populations can recover if given the chance. The mother and calf reach Baja California in late autumn. The lagoons are still quiet, the earliest arrivals, but most grey whales won't arrive for another month or two. The mother will mate this winter, already pregnant when she departs next spring, timing her reproduction so that her next calf is born in these same lagoons 2 years from now. Her current calf, the yearling, will stay with her through the winter, but by next spring, they'll part ways. He'll be nearly 2 years old then, old enough to be independent, ready to join the other juveniles who feed and travel without the burden of reproduction, learning the ocean on their own terms. The blue whale, that massive female carrying her developing calf, also migrates, though her journey is less clearly defined. Blue whales don't have specific breeding grounds like humpbacks or calving lagoons like grey whales. They simply move to warmer waters in winter, dispersing across vast areas of ocean, mating and giving birth wherever conditions seem suitable. She swims westward, away from the California coast, into the open Pacific. Out here, the ocean is featureless to human eyes, just water stretching to the horizon in all directions. But to her, it's full of landmarks, temperature gradients, current boundaries, topographic features on the distant sea floor that she can sense through some mechanism we don't fully understand. She feeds less frequently now, her body shifting from accumulation mode to maintenance mode. The calf growing inside her demands calories, but she's built up sufficient reserves to sustain them both through the winter. By next spring, she'll give birth to a calf weighing 3 tons, the largest baby animal on Earth, as befits the largest adult animal on Earth. The sperm whale pod doesn't migrate in the same way. They follow the movements of squid populations, which means they might be anywhere, cold waters or warm, northern latitudes or equatorial. The females and young stay in warmer waters year-round, while the large adult males, bulls, migrate to high latitudes, sometimes reaching the edges of pack ice, following deep water squid into the coldest seas. The pod matriarch is too old to remember a time when sperm whales were hunted commercially, but that history is encoded in their population structure. Sperm whales were heavily targeted by whalers for centuries, killed for the spermaceti oil in their heads. The industry only ended in the 1980s, and populations are still recovering, still rebuilding, still learning to exist in an ocean without that threat. The orca pod off Norway faces a decision as autumn arrives. The herring they've been feeding on are moving, migrating to their winter grounds, and the orcas must follow or find different prey. The pod has hunted these waters for generations, knows every fjord and channel, but they're adaptable enough to explore new areas if necessary. They decide to follow the herring, traveling along the coast, using their echolocation to track the massive schools. It's a good decision. The herring are plentiful this year, and the orcas feed well, building the body condition they'll need to survive the winter. The youngest female is now a proficient hunter, able to participate fully in carousel feeding, able to catch fish on her own. She's growing rapidly, though she won't reach full size for another 10 years. Female orcas can live 80 years or more, and she's just beginning her life. Decades of hunting and traveling and learning, stretching ahead of her. Part 12. Winter waters, the breeding grounds. Winter brings the whales back to where many of them began, the warm waters where they mate and give birth, where new life enters the world, where the cycle continues. The humpback breeding grounds near Tonga are alive with activity. Males sing constantly, hanging vertically in the water, broadcasting their complex songs. Females with new calves stay near shore, in the protected bays where the water is calm. And in the deeper water, the competition for mating rights plays out in dramatic displays. A female swims through the blue and immediately males converge on her. They jostle for position, the one closest to her, the principal escort, defending his place against challengers. When another male approaches, the escort charges, head lunging, jaw clapping, tail slashing. Sometimes the encounters are just displays, each male trying to intimidate the other into backing down. But sometimes they escalate into actual combat. Whales ramming each other, leaving scars, occasionally drawing blood. The female largely ignores them, swimming steadily forward, letting the males compete, perhaps assessing their strength, their determination, their fitness. She may eventually mate with the principal escort, or she may not. Sometimes females seem to prefer challengers over escorts. The outcome of these competitions not always predictable. These competitive groups can last for hours, multiple males pursuing a single female, the escort position changing hands multiple times. It's exhausting, dangerous work. Males emerge from these encounters covered in scars, sometimes seriously injured. But the stakes are high, and the competition fierce. Elsewhere in these same waters, the yearling humpback from Alaska explores her natal territory with new independence. She's not yet sexually mature, so the breeding activity around her holds only academic interest. She watches the competitive groups, the breaching males, the mothers with newborn calves, learning, absorbing, preparing for the day when she'll participate in these rituals herself. She's also practicing her own vocalizations. She can't produce the full male song, only males sing, but she can produce other calls, and she experiments with them, learning the acoustic vocabulary of her species. She hears the male songs constantly, the complex patterns filing themselves into her memory, even though she'll never sing them herself. In the lagoons of Baja California, grey whale births are beginning. The first calves of the season emerge into the shallow, protected waters, taking their first breaths, beginning their lives. The lagoons will fill over the coming weeks, pregnant females arriving, giving birth, nursing their calves for weeks or months before beginning the long migration north. These lagoons have been used by grey whales for thousands of years, perhaps longer. The warm, shallow water is ideal for newborn calves, protected from predators, sheltered from storms, warm enough that even a small calf can maintain its body temperature. The mothers don't feed here. There's nothing for them to eat, but they can rest, can focus entirely on their calves, can give them the best possible start in life. Human whale watchers come to these lagoons, boating out to see the whales. Grey whales, especially mothers with calves, sometimes approach the boats, so-called friendly whales who seem curious about humans. They surface beside the boats, allowing people to touch them, looking directly at the humans with eyes that seem intelligent, aware, perhaps even amused. It's a remarkable interaction. Whales who were hunted nearly to extinction now seeking out contact with the species that nearly destroyed them. Perhaps they don't remember. Perhaps they do but have forgiven. Or perhaps they simply recognize that these particular humans mean no harm, that curiosity can flow in both directions, that peaceful coexistence is possible. The right whale mother and her new calf remain in the Georgia/Florida waters, the calf growing rapidly on his mother's rich milk. He's doubled in size since birth, now 30 feet long and weighing 4,000 pounds. He's more coordinated now, able to swim strongly, able to dive and surface without his mother's constant guidance. But he's still vulnerable. Every day, boats pass through these waters, commercial vessels, recreational boats, fishing vessels. His mother keeps him close, especially when she hears engine sounds, positioning herself between him and any potential threat. But she can't protect him from everything, and she knows it. All she can do is teach him, strengthen him, prepare him for the day when he must survive on his own. Other mother-calf pairs swim nearby. The right whales are not social in the way orcas or sperm whales are, but mothers with calves do seem to seek each other out, forming loose aggregations. Perhaps there's safety in numbers. Perhaps the calves benefit from having other young whales to interact with. Or perhaps it's simply comforting, shared motherhood, shared challenges, shared hope for the future. Research aircraft fly overhead, photographing the callosities, documenting which females gave birth, which calves are thriving. The data goes into databases, is analyzed, published in scientific papers, used to guide conservation decisions. Every piece of information matters when the population is this small, this endangered, this close to the edge. The blue whale gives birth in the open ocean, far from any coast. The birth happens quickly, the calf emerging in less than an hour, immediately swimming to the surface for his first breath. He's 25 feet long and weighs 3 tons, the largest newborn animal on Earth. And yet he seems small beside his mother's 90-foot bulk. She guides him with her flippers, showing him how to position himself to nurse, how to stay close in the current. He's instinctively a strong swimmer. He has to be. Born in open ocean with no protected lagoon to shelter him. Within hours of birth, he's swimming beside his mother, keeping pace with her slow movements, already learning the vast ocean that will be his home. They swim together through the blue, mother and calf, the continuation of a species that has existed for millions of years, the newest generation in an unbroken line, stretching back to the very first whales, those ancient creatures who left the land and returned to the sea, who evolved and adapted and diversified until they became the magnificent animals we see today. Epilogue of beauty and wonder. As you drift towards sleep, let yourself imagine the ocean, not as we see it from shore, from boats, from above, but as the whales experience it. Imagine being weightless in 3-dimensional space, able to move up or down as easily as forward. Imagine seeing the world through sound, building mental maps from echoes and reverberations, hearing the ocean floor 2 miles below and the surface above, and the movements of creatures miles away. Imagine being so large that your tail is 20 feet across, that your heart is the size of a small car, that your tongue weighs as much as an elephant. Imagine the power of that body, the strength required to dive thousands of feet into darkness, the endurance needed to swim thousands of miles without stopping. Imagine having friends and family you've known for decades, voices you'd recognize anywhere, bonds that last a lifetime. Imagine teaching your children not just through instinct, but through demonstration and practice, passing down knowledge accumulated over generations, maintaining traditions that predate human civilization. Imagine singing songs that change and evolve over years, that spread from one side of the ocean to the other, that connect you to every member of your species within 1,000 miles. Imagine producing calls so loud they're among the most powerful sounds on Earth, calls that travel farther than any other animal's voice. Imagine hunting in complete darkness using only sound, catching prey you can't see but can image perfectly through echolocation. Imagine tasting the water, sensing temperature and salinity, detecting currents and upwellings, navigating by magnetic fields, and the position of the sun and memories inherited from your ancestors. Imagine breathing consciously, every breath a choice, surfacing every few minutes or every hour depending on your dive, never sleeping completely, always aware, always in control of that fundamental act of drawing air into your lungs. Imagine being a mother, nursing a calf that weighs tons, teaching that calf everything it needs to know, to survive in the vast ocean, watching it grow and eventually leave you, carrying your genes and your knowledge into the future. Imagine being a grandmother, leading a family group, making decisions based on decades of experience, being the memory keeper, the guide, the anchor of your pod's culture and survival. Imagine being one of the last of your kind, swimming through waters that once held thousands of your species, but now hold only hundreds, carrying the weight of your species' survival in every breath, every dive, every successful reproduction. And imagine too the simple moments, floating at the surface on a calm day, the sun warm on your back, the water gentle around you. Diving through bioluminescence, your body surrounded by living light. Breaching just for the joy of it, launching yourself into the air, feeling the wind for one brief moment before crashing back into your element. Swimming with your family, touching and being touched, communicating and being understood, belonging. This is the life of whales. This is what they experience, what they know, what they do. And they do it in our ocean, on our planet, sharing this world with us, asking only that we allow them to continue existing, to continue their ancient patterns, to continue being whales. As you drift towards sleep now, carry this image with you, the vast blue ocean, sunlight filtering down through clear water, a whale swimming peacefully through the depths, exhaling slowly, breathing deeply, diving gracefully into the blue. There is no hurry, no stress, no worry. There is only the rhythm of breathing, the steady movement of swimming, the gentle pressure of water against skin, the peace of belonging to the ocean, of being exactly where you're meant to be. Breathe with the whale, slowly in, slowly out. Dive with the whale into the quiet blue. Rest in the knowledge that somewhere right now, whales are swimming through the ocean, breathing, diving, singing, living. The ocean holds them as it has for 50 million years. The ocean will hold them tomorrow and the next day and the next. The cycle continues. The songs continue. The great migrations continue. And you, floating on the edge of sleep, are connected to it all, to the whales, to the ocean, to the vast web of life that spans this planet. You are part of this world, this beautiful blue world, where giants swim through depths we can barely imagine, where songs echo across thousands of miles, where life continues in all its magnificent diversity. Rest now. Dream of the ocean. Dream of whales. The water is warm, the current gentle, the journey eternal. All is well in the vast blue sea. Thank you for listening. Sleep well and good night.